And I also have the honor and joy of representing Hellenic Post in PostEurop, having the chairmanship of the working group of PostEurop group for the training working group. This is the first virtual event that we're organizing. I will tell you a few things about the procedure because I see there are a lot of questions about the languages on chat. Whatever you want to ask or whatever comment you have, you can ask on the chat, or we'll try to respond. On your screen at the bottom, you also have the ability for an interpretation, and there you select the language you want to know. So Greek colleagues will select Greek, and hear the interpretation, right? Is this the case? Great, great. Today we are hosting this first virtual event out of total of 4 events that will be organized in the framework of this educational process, depending on the θα γίνει recording και για λόγους εκπαιδευτικούς και για λόγους διάχυσης και επικοινωνίας. Ελπίζω να έχουμε τη συγκατάθεση όλων ως προς αυτό. Και να ξεκινήσουμε. Κύριε Ράμο, έχετε το λόγο. Να πω ότι ο κύριος Ράμος είναι ο πρόεδρος της ανεξάρτητης ADAE και επιπλέον επίτιμος αντιπρόεδρος του Συμβουλίου της Επικρατείας. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ που είστε σήμερα εδώ. Έχετε το λόγο.
Καλησπέρα. Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Σας ευχαριστώ όλους όσοι προετοιμάσατε αυτό τον τόσο χρήσιμο κύκλο εκπαίδευσης των μελλοντικών στελεχών των ΕΛΤΑ και για τη χαρά που μου δίνετε να είμαι μαζί σας και να σας πω 2 κουβέντες. Είναι αυτονόητο ότι βεβαίως ότι ευχαριστώ και συγχαίρω τους εργαζόμενους στη Διεύθυνση Διασφάλισης Απορρίτου Ταχυδρομικών Υπηρεσιών της αρχής μας, της ADAE. ADAE σημαίνει Αρχή Διασφαλίσεως του Απορρίτου των Επικοινωνιών, για τη συμβολή τους στην εκπαίδευση όσων εργάζονται στις εταιρείες παροχής ταχυδρομικών υπηρεσιών, στο κρισιμότατο τομέα της διασφάλισης του απορρίτου των επικοινωνιών.
In this crucial sector of securing communication security and privacy, postal routes are a crucial path that we should not undermine in these days. Online on site. And the process of sending letters has begun from the ancient times, but it has diminished radically during the modern times, where emails and WhatsApp and social media have increased the way we exchange letters now. There is a restricted vocabulary now. There's a restriction in time that we have to devote to each other, and we no longer search for human communication, but for speed. This is a communication that has personal confession to make. During the long period of lockdown, because of COVID, when everything is being challenged, the days when I receive a package, even from abroad or from local post, when I see on my post these letters and parcels that I have ordered, I realize how important this silent and communication means, that electronic trade, e-commerce. I wonder if this period, of rapid technological advances, postal communication pathways in our routines in our daily lives is so important. How important it is for our new credit card to arrive safely and on time, away from discreet and bad eyes. How it is important for us to have the communication that we have received a job or a welfare benefit, and how this preconditions security that what we have in this envelope it will arrive to its sender without being lost on the way and is in line with the developments. This is what the Hellenic Authority for Communication Security and Privacy is doing, ensuring the proper function of the communication via post, and joining together people who love what they do in this sector. This sector of confidentiality in communication and posts is very important in our lives, and this is demonstrated by the importance granted to this by the constitution of the country itself. In the very constitution of the Hellenic government, it is underlined that the freedom to exchange communication and letters is inviolable. It is protected by the Constitution itself and cannot be restricted even by law. The only thing the law can do is to restrict it in case of important crimes. With the Attorney General only being allowed to lift this secrecy in very specific cases of security breach. In organizations that work with the Hellenic Authority are independent and do not abide to rules or commands by ministers or public services. Two more words about what the Hellenic Authority for Communication Security and Privacy does. It examines reports, issues mandatory regulations, recommendations to providers if there are violations, and it imposes sanctions. The sanctions imposed by ADAE is even on state services, such as the National Information Service, and it ensures communication security and privacy for the postal service. It constitutes two departments for the communication of postal services and postal letters. And this is enshrined via regulation of the official journal of the Hellenic government. A decision issued by the Hellenic Authority, and violation of this leads to sanctions by ADAE. This regulation has a clear provision for all the legislation that need to be followed, all regulations or recommendations, the vulnerable parts that need to be underlined, the securities that need to be followed, the obligations for postal enterprises, review procedure by ADAE, and the sanctions that may be imposed. This even may be part of the training of ADAE employees and their education for postal service employees. I don't want to tire you more. Thank you very much for your inviting me here. It was a great joy for me. I hope very much for being here. You are right that the role of the postal department in this difficult period during the pandemic has been demonstrated even greater, to be greater than what it already was worldwide, because postal services need to be, it is our obligation to have a security safeguard for postal services, and this is approved by ADAE, the Hellenic Authority for Communication Security and Privacy. We fully respect the security and secrecy of postal mail. We thank you for granting us a part of the educational material for ADAE, from ADAE, which helps us in our process. It was my joy, and I am very glad to cooperate with all these good colleagues from the postal services. Mr. Rammos, thank you very much. Secrecy for sending mail, and this is part of our training, Mr. Rammos. Since we're discussing about new educational activities that are underway, I would like to say that I also welcome this new educational process. I will talk about the first stage, or the first part, or rather the first thematic unit of this educational process. We selected. First, I have to say that this educational process has been divided into 4 units, which will include education, vocational training into a regulatory environment, using the fundamental dimensions of the postal work. In the Hellenic Post, we have delivery, the shop, sorting, and delivering. In this week of in this cycle of 8 weeks, we have chosen that the education will be focused on these points, so that our new members will steadily be becoming members of the Hellenic Post, so that they are aware firsthand what it means. Hellenic Post, what Hellenic Post means, what their values are. I want to add a few general things. Posts in general exist since the ancient times. As you know, the Hellenic Post have been founded around 200 years ago and are in line with the meaning of the Greek state. In this period, the Greek Hellenic Post have been contributors and protagonists in internal reality. Was the main carrier of communication, and if you want to call it the neighbor, our postman was this daily person who communicated with everyone every day in all its social dimension, either it's familiar or even personal. We arrived to the present day. As Mr. Rammos said, technology is advancing. We see that traditional postal market changing. So we are moving towards a digital technology, and in this framework, we are trying to remain within the needs and demands of the consumer. In the next thematic units that will follow, the educational thematic units that will follow, the new trainees will be called to monitor the new evolution of the postal services. We are here to contribute to all of their efforts and to support them and to help co-decide with whatever changes are being made. Thank you very much. Now you can hear me? Thank you very much, Mr. Tsitoglou, the General Director of Human Resources for Hellenic Post. This is a general new educational procedure. It is something new for us, this virtual event, especially when it's part of a educational program. And I think that the vision and our logic behind these virtual meetings is so that all of us can hear international prospect to learn what is happening beyond our borders, what our colleagues abroad are doing as regards new services, best practices, what is being implemented at the moment at European level of works. And in this context, we have invited today, and we have the honor of joining us, two colleagues. I call you colleagues from foreign Post, with whom we have collaborated for years now. I begin with Mrs. Margaux Meidinger, who is the head of the European CSR Affairs at Le Groupe La Poste, in French Post. And she also is the chairwoman of the CSR Circle of PostEurop. CSR is the circle of PostEurop that has to do with corporate social responsibility issues. Margaux, welcome. I give you the floor. Thank you. I will tell you a few words in Greek and then I will continue in English. Welcome to everyone. Thank you very much for the Hellenic Post and Afroditi for her invitation. I believe that this initiative of Hellenic Post is very good in carrying out a virtual event and to invite people from the international framework. And it is my honor to be here today and give you this presentation.
Yes, I will share your screen. Is it okay? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Great.
So I indicate you when I want to change then. Okay. Good. So as I was saying, it's my pleasure today to present you a project, European project that has been conducted in the framework of an instance which is called the European Social Dialogue Committee for the Postal Sector. This project that I will present you had the ambition to elaborate scenarios. So we had the ambition to elaborate between 3 and 5 scenarios on what will be the European postal sector in 2030. So my intention today is to drive you through the process of this project and also through the 5 scenarios that we got out of this project. So as I was saying, this was a project which was conducted in the European framework, in the framework of the committee, which represents actually, it gathers a representative from the 27 postal companies of the European Union and the respective trade unions of the 27 member states. So it's a joint parliamentary committee with representative of postal companies and with representative of trade unions. So this project was conducted in 2018-2019, and we had the opportunity to get the support from a consultant who was specialized in foresight methodology. The foresight methodology, which is also known as scenario planning methodology, aims in a step-by-step approach to define scenarios, to elaborate scenarios on the future. So as I was saying, our ambition was to elaborate scenarios on the future of the postal sector. We did that in 3 steps with 3 physical events. The first event took place in Paris, the second event took place in Bonn, and the third event took place in Warsaw. During each event, there was a gathering of several what we call social partners, so representatives from postal companies and trade unions. And the objective was really step by step to elaborate the different elements of the scenarios. And the last step of the project was a final conference in Brussels, where we disseminated the results, so the scenarios of this project. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, I will drive you through the different steps of the project. First of all, we had an event in Paris where there were about 30 participants, and the objective of this event was to elaborate, to define the 12 key factors which seemed of us the most important for the postal sector. So at the beginning, we had 18 factors, and through the discussion, the objective was to diminish the list of key factors and really to identify those who were of most importance for the postal sector. So as you see, those are the 12 factors that we decided to define in this framework. And these factors are very different. They are about, for instance, communication. They are about competition in the sector. They are about the world of work in general. They are about the situation of the society. So there were really broad factors which we believed would impact the most of the postal sector in 2030. So those were the results of the first workshop. Next slide, please. The second workshop. So what we did in the second workshop is that we took all these 12 factors, and the objective was to see for each factor what could be the possible evolution of each factor. So for each factor, we would have between 3 and 4 possible evolutions. For instance, if you take the factor which is called communication patterns, so how will the communication look like in the future, we had 3 possible evolutions. One possible evolution was that there will be a very digitalized society in the future. The second possibility would be that there would be what we call a digital fragmentation. So on the one hand, some people who would be reluctant to digitalization and use the traditional means of communication, and on the other hand, people who would be totally what we call digital natives and totally into the digital culture. That was the second possible evolution. The third possible evolution was a general digital fatigue, in the sense that people would be scared of using digital tools, or they would prefer to use, let's say, the traditional way of communicating. So this is just an example to highlight you how, for the 12 factors of change, the objective was really to see what would be the different evolution possibilities for each of these factors. So this was a work that we did in Germany, in Bonn, again with about 30 participants. And we had a lot of brainstorming and discussions in order to arrive to these different possible evolutions for each of the 12 factors. Next slide, please. So, as I was saying, we had for each of these factors the different possible evolutions. So how we got from 12 factors to the scenario is that we combined the different possible evolutions in order to reach the different scenarios. You can see here the different colors of the scenario. And actually, this is a combination of different evolution possibilities which gave us the different scenarios. So for instance, you see on the left side, we took the second possible evolution, we combined it with the fourth possible evolution, and so on, in order to be able to establish the 5 scenarios that were the output of the project. Next slide. So, as I was saying, based on these different evolutions, we were at the end of the project able to have 5 scenarios. Those 5 scenarios are really 5 possible different futures of the postal sector in 2030. We have 5 different realities of the economy and of the society. And all these scenarios aim to be as realistic as possible. So the objective is to see some signals which exist today and see that if they would evolve, you would go to, let's say, scenario 1, or you would go to scenario 2, or scenario 3, or scenario 4 and 5. And all these scenarios are we try these scenarios to be balanced in the sense that all the scenarios have advantages and disadvantages. Yes, the idea was really to have realistic possible futures. So I will now go into the details of each of the scenario. I hope this is not too complicated, but well. So in order for people to be able to better understand the scenarios, we had drawn some visuals. This is the visual of the first scenario, which is called the standardized society. This is a bit to summarize like the Big Brother society. In this society, we see that the digital and social aspects are very important. We are actually in a society which is highly digitalized, but where the social conscience of people is also very high. This means that the intervention of the state is very important. And also one situation is that the economic growth is quite low. So in this context, there is a large use of data, which is actually strictly regulated and which enables an increased transparency. So actually, there is large use of data, and the data enables everything to be transparent. That's why I was referring to kind of the Big Brother society. In this context, we see that there are new forms of employment. So there are, for instance, freelancers, independent workers, but all this is done under good working conditions because there is a highly regulated social framework. When we consider how is the postal sector in this scenario, no, it's still the first one. Yeah. So on the postal sector in this scenario is under the influence of public institutions, and its aim is to provide public services with a high social value, and also to manage the data as a trusted provider of data. In the postal sector, in this case, there is low competition because the market is considered to be not so attractive for new entrants. So this is the first scenario. The second scenario. The second scenario is what we called a echo chamber society. Basically, this is a society where there is a high use of internet, highly digitalized society, but also at the same time, this is a society where there is a high individualization, meaning that people do not trust each other, and they are digitalized, but they are only connected with those people that they know best and that think the same way as they do. So actually there is a mistrust for open digitalization. In this scenario, there is a lot of discrepancies, a lot of differences between people. There is a digital divide, meaning that some people are highly digitalized and others are using only traditional means of communication. There is also an important territorial division, and also an important division in terms of forms of employment. On the one hand, you have people who have long-term employment contracts with good conditions, and on the other side, you have people with very precarious conditions, which are mainly freelancers. In this scenario, the postal sector is highly competitive, with the main activities being parcels. And the new entrants, for instance, companies like the private postal companies or Amazon, are in a dominant position in this scenario. And the historic postal companies like ELTA or La Poste are a very low market share. Next slide. So this is the third scenario that we have come to in the project, which we called the vicious circle society. So this is a society where there is a strong protectionism. If you want, you can imagine a world where the philosophy of Trump, for instance, would be the predominant one. So each country is much isolated, and there is not much exchanges at the international level between countries. So in this scenario, each of the people has a very securitarian position, and there is what we call a digital fatigue. There is limited innovation and limited digital exchanges, because everything is clustered, limited to the national perimeter. In this context, there is a stagnation of the economy and very important social disparities. Also, the new forms of employment that we see are in very precarious conditions. So all these signals are quite negative. One of the positive aspects is because there is low exchanges between countries, that the climate change, so the environmental negative impact on environment, has also decreased. In this context of this scenario, what we see is that the postal sector is faced with limited competition, and also that the quality of the service, of the public service in the postal sector is also low. So this is a scenario which is not so positive. Let's move now to the fourth scenario. The fourth scenario, which is called the adaptable society, is more or less a scenario where we would expect the status quo, so the current situation, to continue also in the future. So in this scenario, there is a different use of the internet and of the digital tools depending on the population. In this scenario, the regulation is quite reactive, and also the digital tools are reactive. So that means that overall, the digital tools and the regulatory tools are not adapted, not quick enough to adapt in order to face the new challenges. In this scenario, we see that there is an important economic growth, but also that this growth goes together with important disparities in the society. So there are new precarious forms of employment. So on the one hand, there are like the independent workers, freelancers, and on the other hand, there are the employees who are under long-term contracts. So there is an important divide. In this scenario, in the postal sector, the new entrants, so the competitors, are the predominant ones. And actually the regulation in particular on the universal service, only covers traditional activities. Next scenario, please. Next scenario. Thank you. So the last scenario is more of a, let's say, idealistic scenario. It was a scenario which was suggested by the trade unions, which is a bit of a, as I was saying, ideal world. So this is a society where there is a strong innovation and also a strong digitalization. In this society, there is an important economic growth, and social dialogue is the mean of regulation. So the regulation is done through social dialogue. In this scenario, there are new forms of employment. So there are like independent workers, there are freelancers, but all these workers are working under good social conditions. In this scenario, the postal service is a provider of new services which are actually integrated in the universal service obligation. And also in this scenario, there is not much competition. There is a decreasing interest for new entrants to enter a market which is actually limited in terms of competition. A negative element of this scenario, there are very few negative elements in that scenario, but one negative element is that there is a high inflation. Just some words to summarize the project. The project itself actually was very interesting for the social partners of the European postal sector, so both for postal companies and for trade unions, because it was a very innovative project. It was innovative in the format of the workshops, because the workshops were much turned around having brainstorming, about having interactive sessions, and really be able to think out of the box. So the idea was really to be very innovative, to be very interactive. This project was also very ambitious in terms of content, because as I was saying, what we got of the project is 5 scenarios which describe the postal sector in the future in 2030. We consider these scenarios, of course, to be models, to be possible conceptions of the future. But what is interesting is to see how these scenarios can drive our action today. This is the most important. So this was the previous project, and now we will have a new project which will be conducted in 2020 and 2021, and whose objective is, out of these 5 scenarios, to see what will be the most important postal functions in the 5 scenarios. So how will delivery look like, how will sorting look like, and how will the different postal activities look like in the 5 scenarios. So the idea is really, if you take, for instance, the function of a postman, is really to see what will be the daily life of a postman, what will be his or her working conditions, who he will interact with, what type of vehicle he will use, what type of people he will serve, what will be the service that this person will offer. So the idea is really, we have the 5 realities of the future, and within these 5 realities, to see what can be the different postal employees' reality. So the idea is really to make these 5 scenarios even more concrete to the postal sector, and even more concrete to postal employees. So that was for me, Afroditi. I hope it was clear enough and not too complicated. I know it's not always easy to follow these 5 scenarios, but as I was saying, my idea was really to show you how we got to this innovative project, how we brainstormed, and how we really were able to think out of the box and to consider the different realities in the future.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Να πω ότι η Επιτροπή Κοινωνικού Διαλόγου κάνει εξαιρετική δουλειά ούτως ή άλλως. Συμμετέχουν εκεί τα ΕΛΤΑ, εκπροσωπούνται από τη Διεύθυνση Ανθρώπινου, αποστελέχη της Διεύθυνσης Ανθρώπινου Δυναμικού.
The Social Health Committee is doing an excellent job on this. I want to ask you, of course, this will be evident in the next project that will be running from March. But I wanted to ask, what are the main challenges that you see that the postal sector is facing in the next years, if you can?
This is not an easy question, obviously. But I think, I mean, out of this project, the main challenges for the postal sector are, first of all, what will be the forms of employment in the future. So whether we will stick to long-term employment contracts or civil servants in some cases, like in ELTA, like in La Poste, so in many postal companies, or if we will have like a combination of open-ended contracts and independent workers, freelancers. So I think this is one of the main issues. As I was saying, and this is the objective of the second project, what is important to understand is what will be the function of the postal employees in the future, because it can be that delivery will be totally different. As we know, maybe there will be no more delivery of mail, only delivery of parcels, or some new functions can appear, like for instance, the drone drivers, or a lot of IT workers to manage all the IT system that the postal sector will have to work with. So I think this is obviously one of the main challenges. And the second challenge, but this is very much linked to the first one, is the type of activities that the postal sector will be doing in the future. Because as we know, and if we see the different postal companies in Europe, they are very different in terms of activities. For instance, if you take the German Post is a logistics provider. If you take the Italian Post, it is more like a banking insurance activity. If you take La Poste, it is a multi-service activity. We have banking, we have parcels, we have new proximity services. So I think really one of the challenge for the postal sector in the future, it is what will be the definition of the postal sector and what will be the activities. And at the end, what will be the core activities which enable us to consider ourselves as a sector.
Και σε επίπεδο υπηρεσιών, βέβαια,
both at a service level, as you said, the post in France and Germany have also different and there is a difference in the skills that the postal employees need to have in the future. It's not just about the functions that they will have, but also what the skills they will need in future. Perfect. Thank you very much. We're talking about skills, and I would like to give the floor to Dr. Which has 192 posts members from posts from all over the world, and it is also part of PostEurop. Dr. Antonino will talk to us in his presentation. What is PostEurop? It is the union of public postal services, so we can understand where we belong as a company. And
well, first of all, thanks a lot, Afroditi, it's really an honor to be with you and all the colleagues of Hellenic Post. I cannot compete with the Greek of Margaux. I can just tell you of Christos for inviting me. I see that is an amazing educational program that you organize. almost 280 participants. So I want to really congratulate with you and with your colleague for this excellent organization. And moreover, also for thinking about Europe, because as you know, I really believe in the European Union. I am a sort of apologeta of the European Union. And it's always interesting to know and to do what we are doing in PostEurop, especially with you that more than colleagues, I consider friends, because we are almost daily working together for a lot of projects with different, of course, position. Your excellent work like chairwoman of the training working group, and of course, Margaux for her CSR. So I am a lucky man. I am around me all nice colleagues, I mean, to work together. So if we can go on the slide that I can... Voila. So, and like you said, I will give you an overview about PostEurop, because I know that some of you, they know very well, but to have a really large audience, I think it's important to know what is going on also in Brussels. Like you said, and also I think was mentioned from the HR director, I took note, Mr. Tsitoglou, about the ancient, let's say, time of Post. And indeed, the Universal Postal Union was created almost more than 200 years ago, was in the 1874. And PostEurop, of course, is a restricted of Universal Postal Union. As you can see in the slide, we are 50 countries. Maybe my background, you can find also the logo of ELTA Post, of Hellenic Post. And we are 53 postal operators. Let's say we represent the universal service provider. So just to be clear, it's not with us the Courier Express, so no FedEx, no UPS, but of course all the universal service providers. So you can say it's one country, one post, except in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we have 3 postal operators. That is why we have 50 countries and 53 postal operators. What we do, basically, we do an external advocacy with the 2 our big organizations that are Universal Postal Union and the European Union, the European institution, European Commission. And on my area, of course, where I am in charge for PostEurop, is basically know-how exchange and develop projects. And of course, today, being an educational program and talking about new skill, the project that is the most indicate for this section was exactly the NewPost. And I will speak more in details about NewPost, but I would like also already to thanks ADAE, especially I saw that in the panel is the president of ADAE, for the excellent cooperation that we had in the NewPost consortium. They really had a very good contribute with the relevant trained materials. So I mean, really a big Eucharisto also to the excellent work that was made by ADAE. Coming back to PostEurop is really a huge organization, 2 million of employees. If you account, if you do the sum of all the PostEurop members, you will see that we will reach that figures. We have almost 800 million of consumers, and you can see that we manage 60 billions of items per year. It's something amazing. And when we invite during our projects up, and I remember we had in Safe Post, we invited the European Commission to come to your sorting center, where Hellenic Post made also another great contribution in security. I heard that before we were talking about security. And the Commission and all the external stakeholders, they were impressive to see our sorting center, how we are an industry, how we are managing items every day, and more due to this also situation of COVID and e-commerce. Next slide, please, Afroditi. So here you can see, again, I also put some figures that are also, they have an impact, educational impact that you can keep with you. And you see all the PostEurop members where we have full private PostEurop members like Deutsche Post, PostNL, Poste Italiane, La Poste, Group La Poste, they are on the stock exchange. And we have other posts like Russian Post, like Turkish Post, where they are still on public service. So it's not linked to the nature of the company. It can be full private or can be full public. The point is that he has to be the universal service provider. So that is all the membership of PostEurop. What is going on now? I mean, I try to update the COVID. Before was a great question from Afroditi to Margaux. What is the future of the Post? Of course, with the COVID, not only the Post, but all our society is changed. Maybe if it was not a COVID, I was more lucky and I was with you there today in Athens, in the beautiful Athens, to do this presentation. While the COVID changed our life, we are more going on the, let's say, digitalization, and was also Margaux mentioned about this individualization and social cohesion. All these elements that they are a new change, a new challenge in our society. And how the Post is reacting. Please, next slide. Next slide. Voila. What is the significant impact in terms? The customer behavior is changing because, like we said, now there is this lockdown, so everybody stays at home, and there is an explosion of e-commerce. Personally speaking, in the first period of the COVID, 1 year ago, when in Brussels was full lockdown, I was even ordering to the supermarket the shopping, and there was the postman that was even in delivery. If you go in the Belgian Post website, you will see www.combo.be. It's a service that Belgian Post is doing. With the €10, the postman bring to you even the shopping from the supermarket. This is something new. It's really a new service. Who could believe that one day the Post was even delivery at home the shopping? This means on the impact on HR, because it's a new internal measurement, a reorganization of the workforce. It's a reorganization of operational. In the meantime, like Post, we are also the front line of the COVID. So there is also an exposure for our postmen to be in contact with all the society. So can be also an increase of the cost of this, slowdown of operation, and these are the challenge that we are facing, let's say, with this new situation of COVID. Next slide, please. What does it mean? It's also the good point. So far, we illustrate all the problem, but there is a return in volumes. Was 2 weeks ago that the CEO of Poste Italiane announced that for the first time in Italy, in the story of Poste Italiane, they made a profit of 210 billion of euro. And for the first time, the volumes of the parcel, the profit that was made with the volumes of the parcel was able to cover the gap of the decreasing of the letters. Because we are always saying, okay, we have a huge decrease of the letters, of the volumes, and the parcel, they cannot cover this decrease of the volumes. Well, for the first time in Italy, Poste Italiane was able to do that. So this is a new sign that maybe the COVID, it's a paradox, but from the threat and let's say weak point is becoming also an opportunity for the postal sector, because in terms of volumes, there is an explosion of e-commerce. So I mean, like Margaux said, in the past, Poste Italiane was more bank and assurance, but I think now with the new management, with the new trend, is investing also in logistics. And I think at the end of the day, the Post company are moving in the multi-service companies. I mean, who did not do, like, I mean, in the Nordic part of Europe, Post Denmark, for instance, when they had the tremendous decrease of the volumes, they were really in troubles, and at the end was the first merger between two Post, the Swedish Post and Post Denmark, and that nowadays as Post Norden. So that is also effect of I would say, decreasing of the letters on the volumes. So next slide, please. So you can see then that at the end of the day, what we can say, that the Post is a critical infrastructure. It's a part of critical infrastructure of our society, because we are being a universal service provider. We are the skeleton of the state. And we are in touch with the citizen, with the community, with the local business, with the government and public administration. It's really, really who has the most, I would say, large link with all the society. And this is everywhere. It's all Europe. This is the structure. Next slide, please. So what we are doing, like I said, behind the last mile, we are delivering, but for instance, we are delivering also some service. We bring to all the people the medicine or the prescription of the doctor. So we are giving also government information. Even now with the COVID, some of the postal operator, they are delivering the vax. They are organizing the vaccination in some country. Like I mentioned, we are actually delivering food. We are delivering social security payments. And of course, this is also in the global structure of the digitalization, because all these services, they have to be linked to the new technology. And for this, there is a big investment of HR, because of course, the digitalization means also an educational, an efforts to educate and to improve also the skills of our employees. Next slide, please. Voila, and that is again the support that I said, that digitalization means to going online, to also be in touch not only with the old part of the society, but also with the young generation, because also is a target very important, are our customer. Next slide, please. What will be the long-term impact? Well, this, to be honest, when I was preparing the presentation, I was thinking about the usual approach to say that maybe the e-commerce volumes does not automatically compensate the losses of letter mail. But now I have to cancel this part and to say that 1 week ago, one of our members announced that this is possible. So I think that should be also an achievement, a target for all our PostEurop members. Of course, we have to say which kind of sustainability we will have in the financial burden of the Post. And just to conclude this general presentation, also which are the regulatory challenge, because I see that we were talking about regulatory environment in this panel. So I was thinking to also include some slides regarding the general regulatory challenge in the Post. We have, of course, the Postal Directive that we are working daily with the European Commission on that. We have the GDPR data protection, then was mentioned exactly about the security before in the presentation of the previous panelist. So it's absolutely linked to this data protection. And we have have also the introduction of union custom code that is a problem when the Commission is reducing this de minimis. Automatically there is an explosion of e-commerce coming from also China. Next slide, please. And you can see, in case you are interested, to have a strategic setup that we have done with the European Post. We create this PostEurop manifesto that we call it our motto, delivering a sustainable European Post. I just want really, I will not talk in details, but please do not hesitate to ask and to look on our website about this document, because it's really, really interesting, especially the 3 priority areas that are facilitating the single market, promoting the digital Europe, and supporting the sustainability. That is absolutely important that you will have a look. Voila, that's, you can also go ahead, Afroditi, with this, the next slide. Voila, and now we arrive to the project, because I hope that I was able to give you this large introduction, what is going on, what is PostEurop, what is going on at European level, what is the trend, the general trend of the postal sector industry. And in order to be in line with all the challenge, we have to invest in training, in educational. And for this, we have also a big help for the European Union, because we have this program, we have the program that they finance our project. Also, Margaux before mentioned the social dialogue project, and again, it's financed by the European Union. There are funding that they help the society, they help the PostEurop members, the people, the citizen, to improve daily basis their life. This was a project that was based on the Erasmus Plus program. We had 11 partners from all the Europe. We had also Bulgarian Post, Romanian Post, Hellenic Post, of course, the ADAE, the like partners. And was the partnership aims the scope to have this new VET curricula that should provide joint qualification in the postal sector. And I think we really succeed in this. We achieve an update and a comprehensive training curricula for postmen and for front office. We can say that we will work in order to fill this gap. Next slide, please. Next slide. So here you can see the results. We have a new joint curricula designed and implemented. We have what is very important is the first certification. We have PostEurop that is, let's say, the certification organism. Of course, it's under the umbrella, let's say, of PostEurop, because this is made in cooperation with the ACME. And I can say here 100 postal service providers we have been trained with the new curricula, but being and watching now this huge audience of 280 people, I can tell that for sure we reach more and more than this target. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. And again, this was the challenge, the new digital competence for the postal employees and the new certification in order to have this balance and to anticipate and match labor market and skill needs, including, of course, all the transversal competencies and all the digital competencies. And this is absolutely important, especially for increase the opportunity of young people to provide them an adequate required skill. This was absolutely clear for the project and was a target, a very important target. And also, last but not least, to developing high-level skill. for qualified and mobile workforce in the postal sector. And this, we really achieved that, and maybe I will invite you to the next big conference of NewPost. Will be really our pleasure to have you in order to listen, and when we will present all the results that we have produced. Many of those results, of course, you will feel, you will touch directly now in Hellenic Post, but it's also interesting, I think, for you to see what was implemented in Romania, what was implemented in Bulgaria, and somehow to have an overview of best practice, also what is going on in France, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, in Portugal, in Netherlands, in Belgium, and so on. Next slide. Here you can see the composition of the partnership that I spoke before. So if you can go to the next slide. This was very important because it's the expected impact that we have. We had two expected impact, one for the postal sector, but impact is not only for the postal sector, because when we increase the educational skill of our employees, automatically he has an impact also on the society. And indeed, if you have more digital skill, the people are using more the tools, the digital tool, and so there is an increasing of e-commerce across Europe. Like I said before, this increasing was also pushed by the COVID situation. There is also a proliferation of parcel delivery, because that is what's going on. But is also, this means that there is also an increasement of the money, I mean, of the GDP of the country, and that is absolutely also important. So next slide, please. So now we are going to close my at the end of my presentation. And I want to invite you also to continue to follow all the great work that we have done in NewPost. In all our talking about digitalization, we have to be also digital. So we are in the social media. We create a YouTube channel for NewPost. We create a Twitter for NewPost. We have a LinkedIn for NewPost, and we have also Facebook, in order really to achieve more wide audience, to have an immediate communication, and to create a sort of community building based on this topic that are absolutely important, not only at national level, but as you can see also at European level. So next slide. So you can, yeah, that's are absolutely the benefits and the scope to increase the visibility. So, and to raise the awareness about all these VAT curricula, new occupational profile, and all these, how to say, topic. What we have done. So if you are Facebook users, please go on our page of NewPost and give us also suggestions, feedbacks, remarks. We are more than welcome, so please be in touch with us. We have Facebook, we have in the next slide, we have Twitter, so please do the same as well. We have LinkedIn. We target different social media because, as you know, the target is different and the people that they are using are totally different. We have YouTube for a larger group of people. And the last one is our documents, the newsletter that we are producing, our press release, so that you can go on our website and to also receive this documentation to take. This is our website. Here I just put these slides that will remain you also like a tool for educational part. And I think we can conclude the presentation with this next slide. Voila, if you have a question, I thank you a lot for your attention. And again, really, Eucharisto, for this great invitation. I hope that I was able to give you a large overview of what is going on in Brussels. And if you have a question, I will be more than happy to answer in English now, and I promise you after the COVID, when we will organize something in Athens, I will try also in Greek.
Είναι κρίμα ούτως ή άλλως που δεν μπορούμε να τα πούμε με όλους διαζώσεις.
It is a pity that we can't talk to everyone physically present.
Yeah, I just try to listening the translation, if you can, because it did not arrive well.
Sorry?
The translation was not clear.
Can you hear the translation? Can you hear the translation?
Yes, now yes. Was, I think, you start to talk, but not the translation in the same time.
I was saying your presentation was full of information, as always.
Thanks a lot.
Και να πω στους συναδέλφους που ρωτάνε από το chat ότι όλες
I want to tell the colleagues who are asking on the chat that all the presentations from our event today will be uploaded on the platform.
I kept some of your keywords about the mail volumes that are falling, about the boost of e-commerce, which obliges actually all postal operators to develop new services.
Absolutely, Afroditi.
Not only digital, but what we also call proximity services.
Absolutely. It's the two slides where we write last mile and behind, sorry. That is absolutely the point, because we are a multi-service company. So we are delivering, for instance, in being a universal service provider, you have a small rural area where the competitors, the Courier Express, they are not going, like UPS, FedEx. In the small village, I always made a joke that explain, in Italy you have three institutions in the smallest village. You have Carabinieri, you have the church, and you have the Poste Italiane office, the post office. And sometimes the small village, the old people, they need also medicine. They need, and the postman goes to the doctor, take the prescription, goes to the pharmacy, take the medicine, and bring to the older people. This service is already going in Italy. I know in Liguria it's €1 for prescription. I mean, what they are doing. So I fully agree with you. I mean, we are really the skeleton, the critical infrastructure of the society. We are the skeleton of the society, the body of the society. And then being the body of the society, we are connected everywhere, from the peripheric part with the central part. Everybody wants to go in the central part. I mean, in Milano, in Roma, in Athens, in Paris, in Brussels, and maybe nobody wants to go in the small village close to Salonico or, I don't know, a rural area of Greece. So I hope I answered to your question. I don't know if your colleagues, they have some question. I mean.
Θα συγκεντρώσουμε όλες τις
We
απόψεις.
will gather all the questions at the end of the presentation,
Okay.
and we will address them to you. First, we have to move on to our last speaker today. Let me just add, like you said, Antonino, our colleagues can apply to the NewPost program, which ELTA is part of, and is addressed to colleagues who are working at the shops and the delivery. That a colleague who works at ELTA and another colleague who works at Bulgaria and Romania, having participated in this program, they receive a certificate which is acknowledged jointly in all these countries that participate in the program, and it also has a different status because it is under the umbrella of PostEurop.
Και είναι πάντα χαρά μας
And it is always Hellenic Post. As you said, Antonino, ELTA is the first service in Greece who has received a COVID shield for its services, the first in Greece. We are the most, one of the most active companies for European projects, like you said, our strategic department, strategic development department.
Once more.
Okay, so you are sharing from yours. Okay, so I think that I have a better presentation in my computer. Nevertheless, I can follow. I can go. Let's go on. Let's start. I am the scientific director of the ORMYLIA Foundation, and I would like to talk about postal stamps as a piece of our cultural heritage. Initially, I will say something about our foundation. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yes. We are a foundation which belongs actually to Mount Athos. And yes. And one action that we have is the medical center, which deals with mammography and ultrasonography for breast cancer. Με διάγνωση καρκίνου του μαστού. And the specific that I'm going to talk, the other part is the art diagnosis center. In this sector, we are dealing with the documentation of art objects with various tomographic and high technological techniques related to photonics, ultrasonics, photonic and hyperechus and various other radiation. And what we are going to do is to take a tomography from an art object. As you can see in this, we are acquiring tomographies with very high resolution from micrometers, like paint layers of a Byzantine icon. And then we have the possibility to acquire tomographs from ceramics objects as well as mosaics. Even up to the to meters. So we make tomography from micrometers to meters, and we are documenting a variety of other objects. Well, next slide. This is the infrastructure that we have in our laboratory, which is consisting of various technological scientific modalities, which some of them are used also in the documentation of stamps, as you are going to see later on. We can move forward to the next slide, please. Next. Yes. In order to scan and document an object with all these techniques, we have developed various robotic infrastructure in order to achieve high fidelity of information while scanning. Can we move the next slide, please? Yes, if you can see, you can press the. This is a video. If you can go, you can press it. No. Yeah, no, the video is not playing. Yes, you can see. Yes, here, there. And as you can see in this video, I think it has to move now. Okay, make it manually, please. You can press on the bar. Yes, press the bar. Yes, you can see. So we have procedures that with very high accuracy, we are going and we are acquiring information with these modalities from very valuable objects like an old icon or an old mosaic or an old ceramic, whatever. Okay, we can move forward, please. The next slide. And this is some screenshots of one of the labs in which you can see the icons, how they are set up, and we are going to, and we are using the robotic arms, and we are making acquisition of the images, spectra, tomograph. Next slide, yes. So here you can see that we have experience from 17th century before Jesus Christ up to 21st century of objects. We have done metallic objects, ceramic, marbles, and as you can see here, we have also now stamps. And this is some the areas from all over the world from which we have received objects to analyze, where we went and we analyzed objects in situ using our mobile app. Mobile app, the Fortorias Trio, yes. And we are part of a big infrastructure in Europe, which is the heritage structure research infrastructure. And as you can move forward to the next slide, please, you can see that we have a network all over the world, and we are 24 labs leading this activity. Next slide, please. Well, what we deliver finally for an object is, for instance, for this icon, you can see various tomographic, spectroscopic, imaging information embedded on this. Can you please click in one in the infrared mapping 3 up, well, wherever. Click one, just one. Here you can see the user can click on this embedded information and can observe the various layers of the icon. Click also another point, please. Okay, that's it. So going to the stamps now, where all this experience that we have was starting be used in the examination of the authenticity or various cases of stamps. The past 10 years, we have received a numerous amount of stamps in our laboratory. And actually, if we could categorize the cases of the inquiries that we had, we could say that we have up to now 15 of different inquiries related to pigments and different explanations of authenticity. Related to the authenticity of the stamp. Yes. Don't go to this, please. Can you still go to the previous one? Can you go? Yes. Yes. Well, the responsibility is very important on this work, because usually the users want the authenticity study because they are participating in bids. They are collectors, so the verdict that we are giving about the stamp is related also to the price that finally this stamp has. What we have seen, and you are going to see the cases later on in this presentation, the utilization of optical microscopy, micro-Rammos spectroscopy, and various other spectroscopy and imaging techniques, as you can see here, are efficiently used in order to form and make authenticity analysis. Let's go to the cases now. Next slide. This is one case. This was a stamp from the very from the stamps that were printed for the Olympic Games of 1896. And the question that was posed to us was about the authenticity, about of the red marks, of the red stamps on the stamp. Please press the button, please. Well, we have used optical microscopy under UV source and micro-Raman analysis in order to identify the various pigments on the stay here. Can you go, well, I have animations. Can you go back to the three press it back? Μπορείτε να πάτε λίγο πίσω, πίσω λίγο ακόμα. Okay, here. Well, as you can see in the icon below, illumination, we had observed that we have differentiation of the fluorescence, the power that is emitting. So that means that the material that was used for the letters here was not exactly the same. We had actually two materials. Yes, you can go forward. You can go forward. Yes, you can see here also that in the image we have different fluorescence from one letter with the other. Yes, and this is also identified using the Raman spectroscopy. As you can see, the spectra is. Can you press also once the button? Once more, yes. And then you can see here, we can differentiate and identify the pigment in the stamp 3 compared to stamp 1, which means that we have different stamps on the stamp. Well, let's go to the next case. In this case, we were asked if we have again the same pigment in this stamp behind the number, in the numbers. Please press the button, please. Yes, here, and again, stop here. Yes, thank you. Well, as you can see, other specific illumination and other microscopes, we can see in this image on the right that the fluorescence of the letter on the right is different compared to the letter to the number on the left. So next, press the button, please. Yes. So from this we can we extract that the letter was pressed. The one number was pressed with different material compared to the other behind the stamp. While in the second case, press the button, please. In this case, in the other case with the number 20, we can see that we have the same material from the stamp for both the numbers. And this has to do with the authenticity of the stamp. And of course, please, you can go back on one back. Yes. And we have, with another technique, we have identified the material, of course, and which was I think Prussian blue, and that started giving us the possibility to set up a database of knowledge of the materials. Next slide, please. Yes, the next slide goes a case with the the great head of Hermes, and they wanted us to compare the stamps on the right with the stamps on the left, which is the usual color that was used for this stamp, the red color. Next, press the button, please. Yes, one more. Well, as you can see here, using the optical microscopy, and in situ spectroscopy with optical microscopy, we can observe that for the violet stamp, indeed we had some grains of blue grains embedded. Yes, in this gives this differentiation of the color. Next, press the button, please. Press the button, please. Yes, more. Stop in the previous one. Okay, so, and then, of course, since using optical microscope, we have made the spectroscopic analysis again, and you can see that we have differentiation also in the spectrum, which means that indeed we have material in the violet stamp, really the original one, the red one. Next slide, please. And yes, and then using a third technique, colorimetry, we had the possibility and organize and identify the color, the exact color of the violet. And this color was placed on LAB color space, which is a way to identify the exact color of the specimen of the stamp in its case. Next slide, please. Well, from here, my presentation was changing. Nevertheless, I will follow this. Well, here is another case similar to the previous one, which has to do with the stamp appearing the Katotapilani Paros. And we want to cross-check of various colors. See if these are the original set. And what we have seen, if you see the spectrum on the spectrum from the test, the stamps under test and the original one was exactly the same, even color was changing. As you can see in the color diagram. We didn't have a hint about why the color was changing among the different series of the stamps, and this required further analysis because we are thinking to use new techniques not yet used in the field, because probably this material was organic one, which can be identified with other techniques. Yeah. This is under test in the future. So this is another case, again, a differentiation of this kind of color of a head of great Hermes. We compare to the yellow usually used in the case, and what we have seen, this stamp here on the right, red grays with the yellow ones, which are appearing as orange. So we had differentiation of the materials that were used to build this series compared to the original one. Next slide, please. Yes, this is another case which has, can you press the button, please? Okay, in the previous one, sorry, because they don't have animation. The previous one. You see here, using the high resolution analysis, we have identified the differentiation again of the very small grains of material that existed in the grains stamp. And with these grains, the differentiation of this stamp compared to the initial series was Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, this is a case again of the Olympic Games. There is the different one from the one that I presented before, in which for various series of these stamps that were printed in the 19th century, we can see that we have exactly the same pigment with high fidelity again and again using Rammos and XRF analysis. No, this is exactly the same. Actually, no, this is wrong. It's exactly the same. As you can see the spectrum. Yes, that means that these stamps get a fast and the spectra. And so the under-test stamps compared to the initial series were exactly the same. Can we go to the next slide, please? And I think this is the last case. In this case, we had, again, the same problem. They are bringing us stamps in which, of the first Olympics, and they wanted us to identify if they are similar with the original. And this was the same with the authentics, based on XRF analysis, Rammos analysis, and color analysis. I have some cases more not with the Olympics. Let's go to the next one. The next slide. This is the case with the ship Averov, the Thoricto Averov. In which indeed there was printed with blue color and with violet color. And indeed, this was not a decoloration case, but indeed in the violet case of stamp, there was another pigment. You can see in the optical microscope and the analysis. And this was also certified with the colorimetric analysis you can see on the right and the bottom. Next slide, please. This is the case, the same case with Averov. Let's go to the last one. So what I would like to say today, because I'm not a collector of stamps, but I started learning this analysis. I think that we have a difficult case in our effort to start with the distance of the stamp, and that's why we are in a great need to set up a reference database from original stamp. And we have already, as you may notice, already the various cases we have started creating such a database in our laboratory. And this appears to have a great scientific interest in the future, while we are increasing our knowledge. Of course, in this scientific path, we have some obstacles, because we have to treat the things with confidentiality, because sometimes the collectors does not want to this result to be well known. So we are in the position to start categorizing according to the materials and to the information that the stamps are providing. And as a conclusion for the future, I would say that this combination of the above mentioned knowledge with the semantic knowledge that the stamps are carrying on them, we can create a cultural memory along the previous centuries, which this memory would reveal us significant knowledge about the social status of the various eras, because the stamps are carrying this information and the technological analysis support this analysis, and this is a very important step that we can do in the future to increase this knowledge and treat the stamps as cultural heritage. And the stamps will be a part of our cultural heritage. Well, I thank you for your attention. It was difficult.
I hope that the presentation went along, the presentation on our screens went along with what we wanted to. I was very impressed because I did not know about the work that is being carried out at this foundation. It is an excellent work, very detailed, very thorough. I was really, really impressed. Just one question. The posts, if they become the sponsors for this work, what form could such a postal service? What form could such a postal service have? Either as a post or as a European project.
Certified laboratory. That means that when we are making an analysis, this is very well documented, and we are controlled by the from a SID, a national system of certification. So that means that if we are start scanning stuff and creating a knowledge base, this, as I said before, could be an asset for our cultural heritage. And as we see, there are plenty of collectors all over the world, actually. We have received stamps from the States, from the Canada, one was from China. And this world needs certification, needs approval of what one collector has in his hands. Yeah. This could be a very important service from my point of view. I don't know what else.
Antonino, of course, you can intervene.
Thanks a lot, Afroditi, for giving me the floor. Well, first of all, Eucharisto, a big one to Mr. Karagiannis for this excellent presentation. And may I suggest, because you know that in PostEurop we have our philately working group. I think this presentation is absolutely, it's extremely interesting. I mean, for everybody who is beloved, who love the postal sector, but in particular for our philately working group. I think, of course, I will be in contact with Afroditi. I would like just to propose, if it's possible, that to invite Mr. Karagiannis to present, to do this presentation to the philately working group. It will be really great opportunity to spread more and more, I mean, to disseminate this concept, because it's really, really interesting. Well done. Bravo. Thanks.
I thank you very much for your nice words. I'm very, with great joy, I would like to come and give the presentation on my own. I would like personally to press the buttons actually in order to control my presentation.
Well, I can tell you.
Okay, yes, we are open, and I think now I'm making. I can think openly and loudly. Observing the stamps, the Greek stamps, and I suppose that the same could happen with stamps from all over Europe. That the stamps would reveal information about the status of the European citizen, actually, because I think because you know that this is a very high this topic is very high in the European agenda, where even the The Vice President of European is responsible for the European citizen life, actually, in the European Commission.
Sorry, there is a bad...
the real information about this, and I'm saying this because we have the experience from the coins, actually ancient coins. The ancient coins, and I'm closing here, was the only way that the people at that time could know the face of the emperor, could know the face of an important. The same could happen with the stamp, and this could be a great asset.
Mr. Karagiannis said, Antonino, if you can hear me, that we can see how the cultural heritage is depicted on coins. And I see this opportunity to say to Mr. Karagiannis that PostEurop established the Europe stamps, which is every year they make a competition among member countries which have a common theme. It also promotes actually the idea of and
absolutely clear, and that's
I think it's really interesting to see how a common thing is among each country.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's, I think, will be really interesting in the philately working.
Apart from your very interesting proposal, Antonino, for asking Mr. Karagiannis to make a presentation at the we could see whether we could develop a European project around the idea of stamp. And Antonino, yes, you have the floor.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I am trying. I don't know if it's my connection, because sometimes the connection goes and come. I mean, if I understood well, to recap, I mean, you see even the opportunity to develop something in cooperation with the European Union, with the philately working group, some project based on this concept, if I understood well. I hope that you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, Antonino.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. So.
And you'll have more things to say with Mr. Karagiannis.
No, well, what I was saying, I mean, we can elaborate, I mean, on this, and what I was saying is that, of course, we cannot offer an audience of 270 people, but the working group of philately, it's a little bit smaller, but the interest will be the same, I mean, because it's really a great topic. So with, of course, in cooperation with Afroditi, with all
the στο chat, κύριε Καραγιάννη, ποια είναι η πιο ακριβή συλλογή στον κόσμο?
I don't know, actually. I don't have...
Karagiannis, they asked in the chat, which is the most expensive collection in the world?
We have done plenty of very important things. But for the stamps, we don't know yet, and actually I couldn't say, even if I knew.
But which is the oldest stamp in the world? Which is the oldest stamp in the world?
I don't know. Yes, actually, when is the first stamp? When the first stamp was printed?
Yeah. Was in Greece, I think.
Yes, I haven't said that because usually for us the most important stamp was this of head of Hermes, the great head of Hermes, and the stamp from Olympic Games from 1980. Yeah. I will, if we have to have, yes, we have to set up a European project in order to set the history of stamps compared to the coins. So the coins is an object that carries too much information. Believe me. Of course, all of us, we know the wall paintings, we know the frescoes, we know the Acropolis. We have done analysis on David. We were in the team. We made analysis with Louvre, the laboratory Louvre on Michelangelo, to Leonardo da Vinci, but coins are moving all over the world. The coins of Alexander the Great up to India. This gave the possibility to the people to exchange cultural memories. And I think that the stamps could be a similar case with the coins that we have faced in the past. Yeah. Well, I have some ideas we can write down in the very near future, which could lead to something concrete.
Our colleagues are writing us that the first stamp was from the United Kingdom in 1840.
Let's give a try to bring such a stamp in our laboratory to analyze it.
Okay, great.
Let's ask the British. Yes, why not ask the British post office? They have the reference. Yeah.
Royal Mail.
And I have from Mr. Chiaras. I have a question both for you, Margaux and Antonino. What are that the ever-changing technological frontier and societal climate will make it so that new skills we are not will become a requirement for employment?
Okay.
So what we are taught now will be a requirement for future postal employees.
Okay. The topic, it's not new for us because we have a huge fleet in all postal operators. And I remember we made a project that was called Green Post, was 15 years ago when we were launching, we were moving, also La Poste, move from the, let's say, gasoline normal to electric. And of course, this has a huge impact in our fleet, in our system of, changing for the cars, changing. And of course, we are absolutely in line with this concept of smart cities, because being the skeleton and the fact that we have to deliver everywhere, also in the pedestrian area, somehow we have to arrive. So what I see, for instance, in Brussels, they are going to close more and more and more the city, but in the meantime, we have to deliver. So the technology helps us to have a new, let's say, car that they should not produce CO2. Although I can tell you that in Green Post project, for instance, we had a big debate, what does mean green? Because somehow we were reducing the CO2 emission, replacing the normal car with the green car, but this green car, they were going to take electricity from the nuclear. So somehow was a production of pollution with nuclear. So the point is that you have to have a full cycle environment green. You have to have the energy, the electricity that comes from recycling green. I mean, from the wind, from the water, from I mean, not the nuclear, because otherwise you reduce the impact of CO2, but you create another kind of pollution. And this was an interesting debate. For the general view, in Europe, we have, for instance, the Nordic countries that they are going on the hydrogen. I mean, Norway Post, they have a truck that they are hydrogen truck already. I mean, now Germany, you know that also Angela Merkel, they launch for all the country, and Deutsche Post has this special program, Go Green. So if I see the trend, it's all the Europe, let's say, is going in that direction, in the electric, let's say, cars, also on the private and public approach. So the technology help, of course, but in some cases, for instance, can also create, on the HR perspective, also a reduction of human. If you do not create new skills for the employees, the technology can replace, in some cases, the employees. So this is a big challenge. Technology is a good opportunity, but in the same time, I think it has to be supported by the training and the new skill. And this one example of yours is this educational program. So that's, I think, is the general topic. I hope that I answered to your question. Otherwise, I can elaborate more on this.
To give another perspective to the question and how I understood it, I think we see that indeed our postal sector is impacted by a lot of evolutions, decrease of mail, increase of parcels, IT impact, new technologies, climate change, and all this requires for me the most important skill that we have to learn is adaptability. We have to be agile, we have to evolve. The postal employees have to be able to evolve, and I think that in this sense, what you are doing now with training and lifelong learning is very important. We have to keep in mind that we have to adapt throughout our working lives, and what we used to do like 20 years ago is nothing compared to what we'll do in the future. And for me, what is most important actually are not necessarily the technical skills, but what we see as increasingly important are the soft skills. And I think that what we should focus on is what would be the soft skills required in the future. And in particular for us as a sector, one key asset is the proximity, the physical proximal sector.
Absolutely. If may I, one of the challenge I think in our sector, because anyway, we are here with the expert of HR, it's how to be attractive also for young people, because I can tell you one of our challenges is this, maybe the society, the customer, they see like old fashion, let's say, although we are not old fashioned, because you can see how much we are really in advance to follow the new service, how much innovative we are, because one of the point is that it's they consider us like old fashion, so equal not innovation, while it's the opposite. We are absolutely innovative. I remember again in the Green Post with electric, we realized that on the field, on the market, you have all cars possible, I mean, made by Peugeot, by Citroën, but they were adapted to the postal sector. And we create a car, was a prototype, was this Ducati that was created for the postal sector. And the same in Safe Post. I remember this electronic nose, because, and this makes us to be innovative, because our sector cannot be compared to other sector. Yesterday I was in the meeting of the UPU, was very interesting. One of the speaker made a sort of comparison with the sector of telephony, with and it was a reaction because they said, no, the postal sector is absolutely, you cannot compare the telecommunication with the postal sector, are totally different for structure. I think our sector is so unique that that's make the innovative approach, because be unique, you cannot compare. So you can share best practice, you can take some idea, but in the meantime, you have to be able to organize by yourself the solution to the problems.
Νομίζω ότι η λέξη κλειδί, όπως είπες, Μαργκό, είναι η λέξη
I think the key word, Margaux, is adaptability, like you said. The fact that the new data is forcing us to readjust our services, our mentality. We as Hellenic Post are in a phase of great restructuring at the moment, but as we are carrying out this vocational training, this event gives us the opportunity to think a bit broader, to think out of the box, to consider services that so far we hadn't even imagined. For example, like what Antonino said about climate change, it's something that we can no longer ignore. And we will talk about this more in future events, like when we talk about delivery. For example, in other countries, the delivery person can actually go and check in on our vulnerable groups. For example, my father, and see if he's well or not. I think you do that in France, Margaux. Another example, for example, is that the target of postal services is to actually gather environmental data. And so I think there is a lot of things that can be accomplished. It has to do with upskilling and reskilling. We have to adjust both as companies, but also as skills for our own employees. Mr. Karagiannis, if you, something last, the first post stamp depicted Queen Victoria and remained in the history of stamps as the black penny in 1814. Our colleagues are very informed.
Yeah. Well,
I think we have a lot of things more to talk about, information and philatalism and post-Europe working groups. If you don't have any more questions, we can close. We can go to a close as we have exceeded our time limit so far, but we still have 250 participants together with us. Let me just check if there are any more messages, and we'll go to a close. Thank you very much, everyone. We will talk again in the next meeting on Friday, on the coming Friday. It has to do with the delivery. Thank you very much for the colleagues who have remained with us for so long, and thank you, panelists are invited, for giving us the honor of being together with us and for their very interesting presentations. Afroditi, thank you very much, and have a good weekend.
I thank you very much, all of you.
Ευχαριστώ. Really a great pleasure and honor to be with you. And well, the weather in Brussels will be okay for this week. I mean, you know, in the north of Europe, we are suffering, and I will not ask the beautiful Athens, because although I saw some photos where was the snow in Athens, so I was really quite surprised. Like Afroditi said, it's really climate change, but we, like a Post, we are.
Antonino, from which place of Italy are you from?
I am more Greek because I come from Napoli. So in Italy, there is always a little bit between the capital.
You have an open invitation, always.
I felt
that when my city was founded, was created, was bought by you, because New Polis, Napoli, Roma still did not exist. So
yes. I felt that you are from that you are half Greek, actually. And so okay.
Ευχαριστώ once more. Have a nice weekend to everybody. Thanks.
Είναι το πώς νιώθει κανείς πάντα.
It says it's always about how one feels. Thank you very much for being interested. I decided the emails, your email disposal for anything you may need. Good health. I wish you.